Hello and welcome to the world. We're here today in Amsterdam and the city is buzzing out there. And I'm here today with my colleagues. So I've got here Thomas from the Nautical Technical Department. Hello, Thomas.
Hello.
Then I've got here Harald today. Harald is from the Hotel Operations. And then I've got Klaus here from the Land Operations Department. And together we've created a documentary today which really dives into the different areas and how we've prepared for the season. So with Klaus, he's gonna answer questions afterwards about land operations, about these different tours, right? These experiences which we have created.
Absolutely.
That's an interesting one to look at.
Yes.
We're going to talk to Harald then afterwards about what has changed in hotel operation, and are there some changes?
Yes.
Right? So that's Harald is going to take us through that. And then here with Thomas, we're going to talk about the training of all these captains, right? Officers. Then he's got his own yacht, which we're going to talk about today. So it's going to be a fun exercise to go through that.
I promise to answer all the questions.
Yeah, we're going to answer these questions later. Good. And as I said, we've got a pre-prepared video for you, which is going to take approximately 20 to 25 minutes. And in that video, you're going to go through the different stages on how we've prepared. Now, if you do have questions, please post them in the chat as well. We can see them here on the screen, and we will read them out and answer them at the end of the video. Good. And with these words, I would like to say, James, let's go ahead. Let's play the movie so we can see what happened. Welcome to Maritime Monday. We are here in Rotterdam today, which is in the Netherlands, at the Viking Simulator Center. This is where our officers get trained and tested on their navigational skills. As we are restarting the season, we will see how each department is running through their protocols, training and logistics to ensure that everything is perfect for the day when you arrive. On this journey, we will look at the infrastructure that is needed to supply, staff and operate a vessel. We will look behind the scenes and we will talk to culinary professionals, technicians and the people who design and execute some of the best excursions around the world. Join us in today's documentary of Maritime Monday.
The Viking Simulator Center is located in the Netherlands on a busy junction between one of the largest ocean ports in Europe and a vast delta of rivers to access the inland waterways of Europe.
Same as with airline pilots, also Viking officers need to train their skills in a simulated environment. For this purpose, every officer needs to navigate various scenarios and demonstrate their knowledge on how to deal with the wind, weather, traffic and the occasional snowstorm. Wim Derksen is one of the trainers.
What you see behind is a typical scenario of a river vessel meeting an ocean vessel. On your trip with Viking, you might experience this place like Westerschelde, or when you're doing a harbor cruise in Rotterdam. Our officers need to know how to deal with such traffic, and we truly stress test them there. One of our officers on the bridge is Roy. Roy, how are you doing?
Still okay, Wim, but can you turn off the snowfall?
A dedicated engine room has been created to truly facilitate the handling of machinery. Here it is not only important to ensure a smooth operation, but also focus on the environmental efficiency of an engine that can switch from fossil fuel to emission-free electricity. Yes, you heard correctly. We have been focused the past year and months to truly invest into electrical power. From battery packs on the vessels to shoreside electrical power that is obtained while the ship is docked in Paris, Cologne, to some of the greenest cities in Europe. These new ships, such as the Viking Fjordin on the Seine or the Viking Garsemi on the Rhine, are equipped with the latest technology. Of course, this transition needs detailed knowledge from a technician transferring to a digital specialist. The officers and training cadets go through a rigorous training that includes navigational skills such as using the radar, as well as communication from ship to ship and ship to shore. Within the river division of Viking, we have 1,200 officers who take care of our vessel, the daily navigation, but also the background work that ensures that the ship is ready to sail. Whilst the officers are brushing up on their navigational skills, another team is working on getting the actual ship ready for sailing.
I'm Franzi van de Wiel, corporate captain for the French operation. I'm going to talk about the ship day because I'm the lead for that project. So it's actually the aim there is to review the complete maintenance status of the ships and also the complete safety equipment. And this is actually to get ready the ship when it comes to the season start. And what is my role exactly there? It's actually to develop this project with the team. When it comes to the checklist, for example, we have the IOR, so it's the infrastructure organization of the river by Viking. And so they are supporting when it comes to develop, let's say, all the checklists for the maintenance on board. So what we review when it comes to the maintenance, we review what's all about the public area. We review also all the cabins and all the technical aspect of the ship. When it comes to the nautical side, we also develop checklists when it comes for the safety equipment. Also, we develop some kind of audit because there will be also an audit on the ship day for the onboard team, so internal audit. How do we prepare the ship day? So it's actually taking place, we call it ship day, but it's taking place on 14 days. Why? Because 14 days before, we need to restart all the navigation equipment because it needs actually 2 weeks to update itself when we are laying up like this so long time. It's also to give the opportunity to the team then to have enough time to review the ship completely when it comes to the checks. And to support the team, onboard team, there will be the CCT involved, and there will be also the maintenance manager involved for that. So in the morning will be the internal audit of the safety management system to prepare the ISO later on when it comes to external audit. And also we'll review all the checklists which were done by the onboard team just to see if everything is fine, just to see what need to be checked a little bit more deeper maybe, and to see if we are ready to sail, because in the afternoon then we have a sailing time of more or less 4 hours, and during this sailing time we will stress the engines. Let's say we will put them in operation mode, because now we are almost 1.5 years in the harbor. So it's just to make sure that all the engines are still good to run in operation mode. After the ship day will be done, then we'll organize to open claims when needed for the damage or for the maintenance needed on board. Each ship will pass the ship day, we need to review all the ship. It will not be only on 1 month, it will be developing this, we will develop this on all the year, let's say, until December. I think the captains and the crew will be very happy to sail again, during this 4-hour sailing.
One might think that it is only the ships and the crew that need to get ready for the season. But there are also shoreside facilities that need cleaning and maintenance. Who will take care of this venture? Here she comes. the Viking Orva, a purpose-built vessel to maintain some of our Viking-owned and operated docking places in Germany, the Netherlands and France. For the dedicated team of the Viking Orva, no damage, no debris, no gardening is too much. A pontoon that has not been used for over a year is quickly fixed to become almost new, but definitely shiny. With so many pontoons, supply ships and technical requirements, where does all that stuff actually come from? For this, we need to go deep into Germany, near Frankfurt, to a department called Infrastructure Operations River. What a fancy name! Behind this though is a complex system of maintenance, storage and supply, from propellers to carpets, from paint to coffee machine. Let's talk to Kira Stüber, who is our technical expert.
Wiebelsheim, Viking Technical is a storage and a warehouse, but not only, as we are a warehouse for all our fleet, and we store all the important and urgent needed items to get the fleet running, and to support the ships in the shortest way. We need to store many articles, around about 4,000 at the moment, and the range extends from a small relay to over lamps, over tools, over switchboard, cooling liquids, to total propulsion systems, twin propellers, which means it's a huge amount of things we are taking care of here. We have around about 50 several carpets stored here in Wiebelsheim. Here you see on these Paternoster, we store the rolls, and depending on the necessity to change carpet on ships, we are able to cut them and to send them to the ships. Here you see the cabin carpet, but we got several carpets like restaurant, lounge, and also crew cabins.
Now, as we know where things are coming from and the truck is loaded, let's deliver the goods and see what the rest of the team is up to. In the meanwhile, our corporate chef Stefan Lorenz decided to check on our winters to see if the supplies of wines are secured for the season. They met at the beautiful Wacher Valley in Austria, and before they started with the stock control, they had to engage in old traditions and enjoy a glass of wine in the vineyards.
So welcome, my name is Stefan Lorenz. I'm one of the corporate chefs with Viking, and today I'm here with our vintner Erhard Mörwald.
Hello.
Hello.
Oops, and this is the moment when we realized that the wines from 2021 are not yet produced, but that the stocks of 2019 have had additional time to ripe and mature. 2020 might have been a difficult year for some of us, but for the winter, well hidden beyond the Wacher Valley, the year brought some of the best wines forward. With plenty of sunshine during the day, humid nights, and a very moderate climate, the summer of 2020 will be recognized for some of the best vintages of the century. Okay, Stefan, you can now return to the ship. I think we have plenty of 2020 vintage for our season.
Yes, so now you have visited Mörwald, the winery, with our chef. And you've seen that we do have some nice culinary excursions as well. I'd like to welcome you here to Basel, to our head office. My name is Irene. I work here in the product development. Basically what we do, together with a team of destination experts, we create the experience that you enjoy ashore. So anything that takes you off the ship, anything in the destination or on an extension in a city. All these excursions, they are being created here. So basically, at Viking we have 3 pillars of excursions. We differentiate between privileged access and working world and local life. So this is whenever we create something new, we try to make it a Viking way. Of course, next to that, we still have our iconic sightseeing tours or our active tours. So our goal is to really offer the most broad and wide, extensive experiences, whatever we can offer to you, so you can get the most out of the sometimes limited time that you have in the destination. So we really try to give you the best you can have within that time. Let me talk a little bit about these 3 pillars. So basically, local life is any experience where you meet the people. Basically, what we have learned in the many years that we've traveled with you as our guests or with our guests, we realized that everybody likes to meet people. So they like to encounter with the locals, for which we have created these local life excursions, which usually are visits to homes where you meet the people, where you taste their local homemade food. We do market visits. There is in any small town, we have fabulous local farmers markets where you can discover local vegetables which you may not know from home, or cheeses that are typical to the area. Our chef takes you there and you learn about all these different ingredients, and of course you meet the locals. So the idea with local life is meet the locals. Working world is slightly different. This is you visit a place where something is being produced. That can be a dairy farm in the Netherlands, for example, where you walk through the cows, you meet the farmer, and you see how the cheese is being made. In some cases, you can make your own cheese. You can, for example, in Lucerne, we take you to a milk factory on the Pearls of Switzerland tour where you make your own cheese. So you do like a cheese making workshop. We have a workshop where you create your own chocolate at a chocolate making place. So this is working world, and of course also we take you to car manufacturers. For example, we take you to the Mercedes factory, and where you see how a car is being assembled with the different parts. And yeah, privileged access is probably personally I find it the most difficult of types of excursions to create, because privileged access means we're opening doors that are normally not open. So basically we take you to places prior to other visitors. You can do like a pre-opening visit of the Hermitage Museum, so you have the entire museum to yourself with the other Viking groups. Or we take you to Highclere Castle when nobody else is there. So then the whole place, I'm sure you're familiar with Downton Abbey, you have that whole scene to yourself. So, and sometimes the owners are there to greet you personally. So this is the privileged access. We have another excursion which is also privileged access, that is along the Main, and which is called Modern Aristocracy, where we take you to 2 aristocratic residences where you'll sometimes meet the owners, but you definitely get to see places where normal visitors, you're not able to get in like that. So due to our relationships with the partners along the rivers that we cherish for many, many years, we're able to create such experiences. So yeah, the team and I, our destination experts and myself, we're always here. We always need to monitor what's going on in the cities, if there are new museums that open or new venues that we could possibly incorporate. Or sometimes we need to shut down excursions. Basically what we mainly also do, we monitor a lot of your feedback or of our guest feedback. So whenever we realize there are tours that are less popular or that need to change or that need to be adjusted, we do that. Or we create the new things that are there, and so we really try to listen to our guests to see what they want to do. We've created a lot of active tours in the last few years because we realized that there are many people that like to go for a bike ride, go for a hike, be out in the nature. And we're also in the process of developing more and more smaller group experience, because we realize that the time where there is 50 people on the bus, they're people want to have a more intimate experience, a more personal experience. So this is why we are now in the process of trying to create as many as possible small group experiences. Yeah, so that's a little bit in a nutshell what we do here in the product development department, in the land operations department actually. Product development is part of the land operations here in Basel.
Whilst our land operation team is preparing the various shore excursion programs, our hotel operations and logistics teams have stocked up on supplies to deliver food and other daily items to the vessels. For this, we visit our partner Troiber, who is located near Passau, Germany, and where we have our permanent base for supplying our chefs with what they need to cook your meal.
Viking Cruises F&B controller, Stefan, hello. Toilet paper, not a problem. I'm Stefan, I'm the manager F&B controllings and logistics, and I'm a Viking. I am here in the house of Troiber making sure that you out on the ships get all the goods that you request weekly in your requisitions. From our fleet of a little over 60 river ships that we have, Troiber covers 33 ships of that at the moment. The warehouse itself here is currently around 9,000 square meters. Everybody knows this guy? This is where they live. I am getting the requisitions from the ships for what they need, and I compile that here in my office. Once I have that all ready, I give it on to Troiber. Troiber does pick and pack the goods. Then I have a look over the orders again when it's packed, if everything is correct. That pretty much covers it in a nutshell. Sascha Troiber, when he started out, he was cooking sauerkraut at his home, and out of that he ended up to be a business with over 500 employees and delivering goods to over 30 ships and many other clients, and that is kind of amazing. The pickers, they don't get the list. The list now is fully electronic. They all have a little gadget in their ear, and the system is actually telling the picker where to go, what to pick up, in what quantity.
16,442, go.
Go to, for example, aisle 32, shelf 26, spot number 5, and take 3 boxes. And the picker just goes for his instructions, tells the thing, I'm here now. The system says again, take 5 boxes. He takes 5 boxes, says, check, I got 5 boxes, and the system tells him again where to go for the next thing. And this is how the orders are being packed. Here in this part of the warehouse, this is where all the pallets come together, and on the day of the loading, early in the morning or sometimes even the night before, the driver collects all the goods and goes off to the ship. The truck is on its way now, not a successful loading here from our side. Finally, I will be satisfied when I hear from the ship that everything has arrived, even the toilet paper.
The year 2020 and 2021 had a lot in store for us. From building state-of-the-art laboratories on the vessels, creating a network of PCR test centers ashore, training our crew on some of the most rigorous protocols, and engage with the local communities to restart sailing in a sustainable manner. We are back. Welcome to the world.
Thank you very much and welcome back. I hope you enjoyed our documentary about what's happening in the background. And in the meanwhile, you've been posting a lot of different questions. So I'm going to dive right into it. And let's start here. First of all, we've got fans here who's written a question about, which is specifically to the part where we saw earlier, the ocean training, meeting the river ship as well. So that part of the simulator. And the question refers to, you mentioned earlier in the video that the ocean ship can meet a river ship. How is this actually possible? There is no ocean ship here in Amsterdam. So how do they do that?
Oh, that's not true. We have here a mixed area. We call it Zone 2 or Zone 1. So special here in the Netherlands and the Belgium area, Leverschelde, for example. There we have the appointments with ocean vessels. So this means there are some big harbors more in the inland, and the rivers comes from the inland. And this is why we have here a touch with the ocean vessels.
So they actually physically meet. I think we can see this on the website as well. There is a photograph on the website as well, where one of our ocean ships meets a river vessel as well. And I think this was here in Amsterdam, right?
Yes, this was the first call from our ocean vessel here in Amsterdam.
So it's quite interesting to see also the dimensions, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Good. And I'm going to continue here with Tristan from New York. Tristan has asked the question here. So when I look at all these wines here, what have you done with them in 2020 if they have not been consumed because the ships were not sailing? So Harald, what have you done with the wines?
Tristan, that's a good question. We've kept the wine. 2020 has been exceptional good vintage, and that's why we have kept the wine for you once you come back on board the river cruise, and the wine is there. 2020, as I said, has been an exceptional good vintage.
So we're ready for it. The ships are stocked with the wine, right?
Yes, they're fully stocked, right?
All the way to the ceiling with the wines from 2020. Thank you very much. And I'm going to move over to Klaus on a part that goes more into the shore excursion part, which we just saw now. And I've got Henry here from London. So welcome to London as well. And Henry here is saying, you talked about the cheese making in Switzerland. This is the part when Irene refers to Switzerland as such. And the question here is, we are booked on the tulips and windmills in 2022, so next year. Do they also offer a cheese making experience or tour? This is
Absolutely, Henry. The Netherlands are well known for their cheese, and we have an excellent cheese making tour that's connected to Kindergarten excursion as well, where you can learn how Gouda is being made.
Thank you. So that's the Kinderteig experience and also the Gouda experience. Yes. I'm going to stay on that note here, and I'm going to move from there into a different area of food. And this is now Florine, who has asked us here about where the food actually comes from. And the reference is here, you're talking about a warehouse somewhere in Europe where all the food is stored, but where is it sourced from? Is this from an artisan source, or is this from a specific country? Does it come overseas? Where's the food actually coming from? Harald, how does that actually work?
You have seen the warehouse, right, in the video. And this is where we're collecting all the food, but we work mainly with local vendors. So we are keen to reach out in the destinations to small producers, high quality producers, and then we collect all this food at the warehouse, and then we deliver the ship on a bi-weekly basis with the truck you had seen just in the video. This is basically how we do the entire shipment to the ship, but of course we want to just use one truck, because otherwise we would all have these different deliveries during the day while you are gathering on the ship or getting on the shore excursion. And that's why we basically get them to the warehouse, and then from the warehouse we ship them to the different ships twice a week.
I'm going to come back to that food question in a second again, because there's also a question from Margaret, who is asking about if the food has, or the menus have changed, if there's any difference now from 2019 to 2022. I'll let you think about this one, because I'm going to start here with Klaus. Klaus, just coming on the questions about the markets and the towns. You talked about the cheese before. If we talk a little bit about the shore excursion,
Yes.
You talked about things are open, right?
Yes.
When we talk about things are open, what is open, right?
Yeah.
Can you explain it a bit?
A lot is open. All Europe is open. Our vendors are very happy and very keen to receive our guests. Just last week I was in Paris. I visited Versailles. It was stunning. There were only a few people there, so many sites that our guests are exploring right now. They are as empty as they have never been. They're open, but they're not overly crowded. So it's a fantastic experience our guests are making.
And I've got quite a few questions around different destinations here now. So I'm going to go into the different destinations. While we do that, we are here in Amsterdam today. And James, perhaps you can play in a short clip as well on what happened today in Amsterdam. So, Klaus, you were here today in Amsterdam. There's a reason actually why you're here today.
Yes.
Of course, to answer the questions here, but there was also a reason before.
Yes.
So what happened in Amsterdam today?
Absolutely. I mean, what you can see right here behind us is the Viking Modi. And the Viking Modi has embarkation today. The guests who are embarking the Modi today, they are continuing tomorrow to Kinderdijk, and then they're en route all the way to Budapest. It's a 2-week cruise, the Grand European Tour. And this is what happened today in Amsterdam.
And I think Linda, if you're watching right now, Linda from Indianapolis, Linda is saying, gosh, it seems like a lifetime ago when we went on our first river cruise with you. And the question is here exactly on that stretch here. So will all the venues be open in September during our Grand European cruise, which is actually that cruise?
Absolutely, yes. And like I said earlier, about 98% of all our venues are open, and our vendors are happy to receive our guests.
Now, when we switch between the different itineraries, we talk now a little bit about Amsterdam here. We've got Peter here from Scottsdale. Now, he's going to go all the way to Bucharest. So he's going to do the Bucharest to Budapest trip. And we're just starting there as well. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. Also there, we're having embarkation in Budapest. Guests have arrived today. They're staying for 2 nights in a hotel in Budapest, and then they're embarking the ship and they're sailing towards Bucharest. And also there, all our shore excursions are operating as regular.
I've got one more here. There's got actually plenty more, but let's stick to this as well. David here from Madison. So David, your question here is, we have a Swiss to Paris trip at the end of August. So can you tell a little bit more about the local experiences? Are they actually happening? Is the cruise also taking place there? Also more towards the direction of free time. So I'm going to come to the question in a minute. So first of all, the cruise, when we talk about here, Swiss to Paris.
Paris to the Swiss Alps.
That's the one it's referring to.
Also, that cruise is running, and also there we're having embarkation actually today. Our guests embarking our ship for this cruise, and the cruise is running. And you spoke about what's happening during free time, and our guests, of course, they can explore the cities and the villages we're docking in during their free time, also independently.
Mm-hmm. Staying on that note here, we're talking about the free time, so there's independent exploration here. But also it says here, Dale from Scottsdale is referring to the recent events that happened here in Germany as well. And Dale is specifically going back to the river flooding here, right? And I'm going to bounce this here between Klaus and Thomas, I think from a nautical perspective, but also from the land operations. Now, there were quite some recent floods here in Europe. Now, first of all, from a land operation perspective, does that impact the recent cruises that we have?
It does not impact our cruises, because the areas where the severe floodings were, we are not exploring on our itinerary. So from a land operations perspective, we're operating all our itineraries as planned.
And Thomas, when we come to a same question here from a nautical operations perspective here, so when we look outside, I mean, it's sunny outside tonight, it's beautiful weather outside, but when we have such a situation, there seems to be a higher water as well. Does that situation impact us at the moment?
We monitor the water levels day by day, hours by hours. So we get warnings if the water levels go up. But this specific situation in Germany, it was from a special weather situation what we have. It was the last times not in these areas. So the only rivers was impact was the Mosel and the Rhine, but not so much than the area in Rheinland-Pfalz.
So we started at the right time, which just after that, right?
Yeah.
Which is we are perfect
in this situation, lucky.
Super, and as we can prove now, the sun is shining actually outside, so we're on the right stretch here. I've got a question here to Harald, and Harald, this is more about the crew on board as well. And there's one question from Herman and one from Nigel from Long Island City. And Herman as well as Nigel, they are asking, first of all, we will be sailing on the Viking tier in September. So they obviously have been on the ship before, because it says here, can we expect Johan, the captain, and Claudia, the hotel manager, to be back on board? Well done that you remember. So we're talking about the captain and the hotel manager. Are they back again? Have lots of the crew actually returned to the company is the question.
Johan and Claudia both will be on the Viking tier. And the reason I'm knowing it, because I've seen them last week when we have started our training and to prepare the ships. So just to rest assured, both will be on board the ship. But then it's going to be also 90% of our crew is coming back for the restart of the rivers. What we have done in the last 16 months, we have kept contact with our staff in the different countries. So basically we got them engaged with our operations. So they have now returned approximately 4 weeks ago on board the ship to get all the ships ready. So what you can expect is you're going to see the same faces, right? They are happy to welcome you on board our ships as we start now all our operation on the rivers.
Thank you very much. There's lots of questions coming in on the different itineraries, so I'll come back to this one in one day. But before I'm going to take these questions, I'm going to go back to a question that has been asked earlier, and that's a question for you, Thomas, here. That's a reference to the yacht I've been talking about, right? And I think we're talking about the Viking Orva I've referred to. So the Viking Orva is our supply ship, right? Sailing the worlds. And it says here, first of all, the question here from Fatima from Lancaster is it possible to sail on that small supply ship? That's an interesting question. I've had that one.
It's only allowed for our stuff. It's a working boat. So we use it for the maintenance for our infrastructure, for the docking spots we have on the River Rhine, Elbe, Danube, Mosel, and Main. So it's not allowed for passengers or for guests, only for the staff. Sorry for this.
So no deals there, yeah. The question though, the second question is, where does it go to? So you are saying it sails on all the different rivers, is that correct? Or is there a certain limitation?
No, we use it for all the rivers here in Central Europe. We don't use it for the River Seine or for the River Elbe. But here where we have the main spots, our own mooring place, we're the owner of 65 mooring places. There we use it for maintenance and all for the refurbishments.
So 64 mooring places, that's a lot. Yeah?
At the moment in service, yes.
And where are they? Are they all over Europe, or are there a certain place where they're located?
Mainly on the River Rhine, between Amsterdam and Basel. We have some on the River Main. And we start before we have the COVID situation to build some new places on the River Danube.
Here we go. So, and these are the best places to dock. Yeah?
Absolutely.
So we'll come to this a little bit later. We'll come back to this a little bit later on. Now, looking at the different destination questions, I think a lot of the questions are about procedures in these destinations. So I want to come back to one of the questions you have asked, which I've asked early on, but it comes up quite a couple of times now as well. The question is about shore excursion pre and post. So for pre and post as such, the question is when I go into a pre or post hotel, right? The question is here, am I allowed to actually leave the hotel on my own? Can you explain this?
Absolutely, absolutely. That goes back into the direction I mentioned earlier, independent exploration. And of course, when you are visiting a town, what you will find there, or a city, is a Viking host in that hotel that takes care of your questions, that takes care of your wishes. We are, of course, also offering shore excursions during our pre and post extensions that you can book. And other than that, you're more than welcome to explore the town, the city, also on your own.
Thank you very much. And that is Henry from the United States who was asked that question. And Henry was specifically referring to the passage of Eastern Europe, August 2021. And he spent the first 2 days in a hotel in Budapest, where he's asked if he's able to actually walk outside.
Yes.
But I want to stay here because Carol was also asking in that direction. We talked about the independent exploration on the Rhine River Gateway cruises. I think we've talked about this one so far. Taking it here from Carol and Bill, they made a comment here, which is a very nice comment here, actually. So Carol and Bill are saying, I found it very interesting on how you handled an outbreak of COVID on one of your very recent cruises just completed. It reassures me how planned every aspect of protecting everyone on the cruise was. Great job. It was in Cruise Critics. So Carol and Bill, thank you for that comment. I think we're going to dive into this subject a little bit more as we go along now. And I think I'm going to look at Harald at this point here. The question that comes up here quite often is, how does the ship look like when it comes to COVID now? Is there a lot of rebuilding that has been taking place? What's the look and feel now? What can we expect?
Back, I think it was 16 months from now, right? We were the first river cruise line or cruise line who had stopped navigating. And one thing we have clearly said, we will only resume our cruises once it's safe to do so. So we have been working hard the last 16 months to establish our protocols, which makes river cruising safe again to travel. And I think the best would be if we could show a video just to summarize the protocols we have been working on and just to show, right, what we have put in place.
Let's do this. Well, James, while you're getting ready, let's perhaps show the video of Mr. Hagen as well, explaining the protocols. And I want to refer back to the specific question which was asked here from Chris from Belfast. And he says, we have no doubt that the Viking captains can manage the boats. That's back to your reference at the beginning. We're more anxious to know how you're going to manage our safety from the COVID pandemic. And I think that video fits quite well. So James, if you can just watch the video for a second, which explains the procedures there.
Dear Viking guests, I'm on board the Viking Star with colleagues. We are here to complete the work needed to have the Viking fleet return to safe sailing. It has been great to be back on board again. Over the past few months, we have all missed the opportunity to travel the world. I want to share with you that we have implemented the very highest standards of precautions on board our ships to ensure that travel with Viking is as safe as it can be in 2021. I'm extremely pleased to note that our Viking ships have structural advantages that also make them well suited for these times. Our ships are small, and all our ocean ships have balconies, no shared air between guest cabins, and plenty of public space, as well as outdoor dining, which we all like. To make the ships even more suitable for COVID times, there are a few enhancements we have felt it appropriate to make. But it's remarkable how little impact this will have on your next experience on board. There are now automated cameras that take your temperature on both ocean and river ships. On the ocean ships, we have 2 UVC robots. They are at work to disinfect public spaces while you'll be asleep. And the air ventilation systems have been equipped with UVC light and electrostatic filters. These are not noticeable to you, but are proven to kill 99.9% of the pathogens. That includes the COVID virus. We now have a little bit more distance between the dining tables. They were already well spaced out. You will not notice a big difference from before. And in case of our river ships, I think it makes the experience even nicer. But the key to making ships safe for the future lies in testing, in the testing program that we have developed, which far exceeds the requirements of various governments around the world, and I dare say, of any of our competitors. There is wide agreement that the best testing method for COVID-19 is PCR, and also that daily tests, if you could do them, are important to avoid spread of the virus on board. The problem with that for the industry has been the difficulty of having enough testing capacity on board. But at Viking, we have gone to the step of installing full-scale PCR laboratories on our ocean ships, plus a network of shoreside PCR labs on our river ships. One of our onboard labs is already installed and working here on the Viking Star, using non-invasive saliva sampling, not the uncomfortable nasal swabs used elsewhere. I've been on board for a couple of days and can testify that this is truly a non-invasive method, and it takes only seconds of your time every morning before you brush your teeth in the privacy of your own cabin as it is. We have based our health and safety protocols on epidemiological modeling by industry experts and the involvement of Dr. Raquel Bono, a retired Vice Admiral of the US Navy. Dr. Bono has already been working with us several months, developing our protocols, and I'm pleased to say she is now a permanent member of our Viking family, holding the position of Chief Health Officer. We also have a partnership with one of the leading medical diagnostic firms in the world, Medicover, who will be running our labs on board on the ocean ships and provide the land-based labs for our river ships. Now, our experts agree, with daily PCR testing, it is possible to virtually eliminate any spread of virus on board our ocean or river ships. For that's like any ocean or river ship. With daily PCR testing, one can also operate longer cruises without any significant risk of community spread on board the ships, not limiting oneself to 7 days or 4 days or whatever. You can operate proper cruises. In fact, with daily PCR testing of guests and importantly of the crew, our modeling shows that most of us would be better off being on board a ship under our protocols than going about our daily lives at home. So that's not too bad. We are also optimistic about the significant progress towards multiple vaccines. The recent results from 3 trials are very promising. In the UK, the vaccine is already being rolled out this week. And in the US, we could see approval of the first vaccine in the coming days. I'm happy to observe that the time is drawing closer to us being able to welcome you back on board again. As things stand, our clear aim is to become operational again by around April 1st. And we look so much forward to exploring more of the world with you, in comfort as usual, and with great confidence. Thank you.
And here, let's start with the first questions that are coming in. I try to group them a little bit here. So we've got Linda independently asking, also Steve here from the United Kingdom. So Linda from the US, Steve from the United Kingdom. And the question here is about the crew vaccination. Harald, can you tell us about a little bit about the crew vaccination? Are they vaccinated? What's the situation there?
Mm-hmm. The same as for our guests, all our crew is vaccinated on board the ship. We believe that's the only way we can get back our cruises in a full, safe manner. So therefore, all our crew, as I had said, are fully vaccinated, the same as the guests. Yes.
Thank you. And Lucy is asking here specifically on the testing. I think you've seen this in the videos where we showed the different labs here. And the question here is about First of all, how does the testing work on board one more time? How invasive is this? And the question here specifically from Lucy is, if I'm going to fly home and I need a certification of a COVID test, am I able to get that? Are you able to help them?
Fine. We have established laboratories on our ocean ship. On the river ship, of course, these ships are smaller. So we have partnered with shore-based laboratories who are doing our saliva testing, right? So on board the ship, you're going to find these small tubes, which I think you had seen also in the video. And there we collect the saliva in the morning, and then this is brought into shoreside labs. And within 16 hours, we're going to have the results back. And we test our crew, but also our guests on a daily basis. This is basically how we have set this up. To the second question, I think you have asked for the certificate. Depending, of course, where you're from, right, you are required to have a PCR certificate for your way back home. And this is basically what we provide as a service. 2 days before you would depart from the destination back home, we would issue the certificate and we would hand this certificate over to you on board the ship. So to guarantee, right, that you have all the certificates you need to travel back home. This is basically how everything is set up now. And this we do throughout the fleet. So for every single destination, we provide the guest with these certificates.
So it's non-invasive testing as well. And we provide the certificate as well before anybody flies home as well, if they need it as such.
Yes.
Super. I'm going to come back to this in a second. Specifically here, we're going to talk about close contacts in a moment. But there's an interesting question that comes up on the shore excursion side, just to link that in. And the question on the shore excursion side is, how does that relate to shore excursion in terms of COVID, in terms of if I stay in a hotel before and after, are there differences as such?
Well, I mean, also on the shore side, we have, of course, COVID measures. So, for example, we're asking our guests whenever they are on shore to wear a mask if they're in closed rooms or if they're riding on a coach or in general on a vehicle. Whereas if they're outside in open air and social distance is guaranteed, then the mask can also be taken off depending on the local requirements.
And the question came from Pam, and she says, I'm confident that Viking is COVID ready for sailing. How about my excursion? And that's really where the question comes from.
Yes. So also on the excursions, we're ready, COVID ready. We're also doing extensive trainings for local guides, bus drivers, airport hosts, to train them particularly on COVID and how to deal with the situation.
Interesting question. Now let's move into these close contacts. The question from Amy is, she talks about how do you deal with close contacts? How does that actually work, the whole tracking and the whole checking this out on who was the close contact? How's the setup there?
The close contact, I mean, with all our measures, we have in place the likelihood that we're going to have a positive case on board the ship with the testing, with the daily testing, PCR testing we have on board. The likelihood that we're going to have a community spread is very, very minimal, close to zero. So I think that's important to say, right? A close contact is considered as spending 15 minutes with a positive, right? And this then is considered as a close contact. In case of a close contact, then you would be required to quarantine. That's why I think it's important also what Klaus had also said, social distancing is of essence, but then also wearing a face mask. And this is basically the requirements we have on board. So whenever you can't keep a distance of 5 feet, you would need to be required to wear a face mask, even though you are fully vaccinated. And the same counts for the crew. And this is basically how we mitigate the risk of a community spread. And I think that's so important to mention. And this is basically the procedures we have on board the ship, but then also on our shore excursion, as Klaus just had mentioned.
I want to come back to what you just said about the distance as such. But in between, I want to read a comment of Peter from Tampa. And thank you, Peter. You're making a very nice comment here. He says, just wanted to say, after 5 cruises with my wife, and I feel your staff and team members are what sets you apart from all others. We feel like family when sailing on your river cruises. They're always impressing with everyone's professionalism and hospitality. Thank you, Peter. It's a very nice comment, actually. But I want to come back to the topic here. It's a very nice comment which came in there. Topic though was about the distancing, and there's a few questions around it. So Alexander here is saying, so when you talk about the distancing as such, have you rebuilt, the question is really, so I read it out to you, have you rebuilt the ship to ensure that you have enough distance? So I think what Alexander is referring to is, have you made any changes in restaurants, setups, anything in that direction?
We've kept the Scandinavian design, of course, of our beautiful longships. What we have done is we have given the guests the opportunity to dine, not just in the restaurant, but also in the lounge and in the aquavit terrace. As most of you will remember, right, there is no better place to have lunch or dinner with a nice, beautiful weather like we have tonight on the aquavit terrace. It's al fresco dining, and this is where our guests enjoy or can enjoy, even in open airspace, the dining. So we had made benefit of our longships to have our guests basically dine either on the aquavit terrace or in the restaurant, which allows us to keep the distance, right? And the distance, as I had mentioned before, is so important, right?
Thank you. Interestingly, there's still a lot of questions about the individual exploration. It comes up again and again.
Okay.
I think we've covered that part, but perhaps Susan is asking that from the United States. She's also asking about the free time as well. We'll come to this in one more time. But I want to go to Steve from the United Kingdom. And Steve is saying, how can we still do tours to people's homes? Is that still possible?
Well, when it comes to tours to people's homes, those we're pausing right now. They're called home hosted. And of course, depending on the location, often we visit people in their living room, in their dining room. And this is very tight. So either we're not going there for the moment, or we're selecting the venue that it would be large enough to bring people there, or we're minimizing then the group so that those excursions would happen in a small group setting. So we do anything we can to ensure the safety and the health of our guests.
Super, and that brings me back to, I'm gonna go back to COVID in a second, but there's an interesting question in between about the preparation for this whole setup here. And I think, Harald, there's a good question for you. It's from Sonia from the States as well. And Sonia is saying, wow, what a preparation. I can't wait to get back on board. But how was this preparation different than when you set up for a normal sort of season? So if you, I think what we're referring back to is like in 2018, 19 to 2022, 21 now, actually. How did that actually change? Is there a difference, or is it the same business as usual?
Well, Sonia, I think it's a good question, right? If I think about it for a moment, I think what COVID has done, I think it even brought us closer. And as you know, we are a Viking family, right? And I think what it really had done is it brought us even more closer. And I think we're getting out there much stronger than before. We know, right? We are here to deliver great service. We are committed to deliver great service. And I think we had kept such a good contact to our crew over the past month, right? And I think if I would compare this, that's a huge difference for me.
Yeah. Thank you. That's very nice, actually. Coming back here, we're going to have to stay with COVID for another second here. And here we're talking about vaccination cards. So this is Marianne from Syracuse. And Marianne from Syracuse is saying here, well, obviously, Marianne has a vaccination card. She says here, will my vaccination card be sufficient to join the ship? Or do I need to use Verifly? So I think we need to explain what Verifly is to go through that.
Verifly, of course, we have established basically to help the guest to better register, to go through the entire journey from departing at home with the airlines. So the best way is if you can register everything with Verifly, and this is the way we also then, you can use it for traveling to Europe, but that's the best thing to do. But on the other hand, I think it's also good if you bring your vaccination card with you, because some of the different passing through the borders requires basically a proof of vaccination. So it's both register with Verifly, but at the same time bring the vaccination card with you. I think this would answer the
Absolutely. On top of that, we can also add, in France, for example, our guests need their vaccination card right now to enter museums like the Louvre or to enter Versailles. So there, the vaccination card is being checked at the entrance.
So you need the card actually to go into these different destinations.
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Thank you for that. Now, staying there, there are a few questions around, again, the fact on how the actual experience has changed as well. It's quite an interesting one. And it's David from St. Louis who is saying here, has the embarkation changed by itself? So is it any way different now when you arrive? Like usually when we're here in Amsterdam, you walk on the ship, you get sailing basically quite quickly. It's quite a smooth process now. Now, in terms of COVID as such, is this a difference now? Is there an hour to wait, or can you actually get into your room as quick as possible?
Yes, you can. And I think we have learned quite to establish digital solutions also. And I think one of the benefits we have now is the so-called kiosk, right? We have a kiosk which is a stand, right, at the entrance of the ship. So guests could check in, do a quick check-in over My Viking Journey. Then the guest will get a QR code, and the QR code just needs to be presented at the kiosk, and then you can go straight to your cabin. I think this is something new we have established now for this season. So whenever you come back on our cruises, you can experience that great move. So there's no lining, right? So you can go straight to your cabin. I think that's something I would mention as very positive, right?
So we cannot say it has become faster because it was very fast before already, right?
It was fast, but I think now this, of course, helps, of course, the entire procedure when getting on board the ship. Absolutely.
Brilliant. There are, again, a few questions around the food itself and how this has changed as well. And one of the questions from Linda is here, how does it look like? You have this buffets here, so she's referring here to the buffet-style meals that we used to have on board, or that we have on board. And she's saying the buffet-style meals, how has this changed as such? As we know, this was quite an issue over the past years, or the past year that we said buffets are not allowed in some places. How did we adapt to that?
We still do serve breakfast in a buffet style, but we have also so-called basso rounds. So we would come with a freshly nice baked croissant when you are cruising on the Seine, for example. But then on the other hand, for the lunch, we have created one thing I think I need to mention. We have created these nice salad balls, right? These are freshly, nicely prepared fresh tossed salads we have implemented as a lighter cuisine. But then, of course, in the evening, we stick to the local cuisine, which has been always our focus, right? So guests can come on board the ship, they can experience the local cuisine. So this is basically the concept we have had for quite some years, and I think this is why you would also travel the destination.
Yes. So I have to say that I'm getting.
But there are a few nice, but there are a few recipes, right? We have created new over the past few months. So, yeah.
But I'm going to have to move away from the food because we still have a couple of questions there. And Klaus, I'm going to have to point them at you here. This brings us back a little bit more into the administration, PCR testing, certifications. And there are specific questions about One time there's a question from Bruce from Grantsburg, and Bruce is saying here, is PCR testing and certification available during post-cruise extensions in Budapest? Before you answer that, there's a second question that has come up here, and they say the second question that I have here is, will you provide a PCR test and certificate on extensions in Amsterdam if required? And it's Deborah who is asking that. So I think we've already dived into that, but yes, you can explain one more time.
Yes, like Harald mentioned earlier, we are testing on a daily basis right now, and usually, depending on the duration of the post-extension, the tests that are still done on board of the ship and those certificates will be sufficient for flying back home into the US, as it is a 3-day requirement for the certificate. Should the post-extension be longer, then we also provide, if that post-extension is organized with Viking, then we also provide testing in the post-extension destination to then receive that certificate in order to fly back home.
If I may stay on that topic here, David from Boston, he's referring to Italy, and I have to say now, I guess that's a pre or post extension there in Italy. He's asking here, so when I go on a pre or post extension in Italy, does my green card, is that sufficient here? So again, it's a more generic thing about the different destinations here. So in this specific case, if I go to Italy, does my green card actually or is my green card there sufficient?
In Italy, we have our Lake Como extension, and I'm not sure if I understand the question correctly when it comes to green card. But if I interpret green card as the vaccination card, the CDC card, then yes, it will be sufficient.
Thank you. I've got a very interesting question here, Thomas. That's one for you. And then
COVID question.
That is actually, it's a COVID question here, and it's a very smart question here. It actually says, so what happens if the captain gets the virus? Do you have a backup captain? And it's from Elaine from Dallas. It's an interesting question actually to ask, yes. Do you have a backup captain?
Yes, we have backup captains that we can provide a safe trip for our guests and for our crew on the ships.
I think what's interesting to say here about that is we've got about 1,200 officers. So that's 1,200 officers which are actually sailing the ships. And how many are approximately captains of these officers?
We need from schedule by schedule 3 captains or 3 licenses on the ship. So you can say more than 35–40% of the staff are nautical staff is licensed officers, captains.
From the officers there. So it's quite a number of them are licensed, and we call it the captain, but also there might be a first officer who has a license as well. So no worries, if the captain gets positive, we can still sail. So even though we're sad about the captain here if it happens, but we can still navigate as such. Good. Moving here from COVID a little bit away now. So I want to come back here to the Christmas cruises. And that's Catherine who is asking that. Okay. Well, we're just about in the summer, Catherine, but Catherine is getting ready for the Christmas cruising. And Catherine here is saying, so exciting, I'm going on the romantic Danube during the Christmas markets in about 4 months. Are they having them? What's the feeling around, we talked about Amsterdam is open, we talked about shops are open, yes. You talked about Paris before.
Yes.
What's sort of the deal about the Christmas markets?
Yes, I mean, to the best of our knowledge, Catherine, what we know right now, the Christmas markets will happen. Of course, this is always depending on the development of the incidence or the prevalence in the respective regions. But right now, what we know is they're already in full planning for the Christmas markets, be it in Nuremberg, be it in Cologne, be it in Vienna. Beautiful Christmas markets in Europe are waiting for you. And you can definitely look forward to that cruise.
To the same question, actually, there's another one that came in, and this is from Peter from Tampa. And Peter is also referring to the Christmas cruises, interestingly. And he's saying here, my wife and I have taken 2 Christmas market cruises. we wish we could have visited each one at night. But this was not always possible. So can you explain a little bit about the Christmas markets, when it happened? Is this a day event? Is this an evening event? Can you visit them during the evening as well? Because I think that was not quite clear.
I mean, of course, this depends on the sailing schedule. Usually Christmas markets, they open up late morning around 10, 11 o'clock, and they then last until 8, 9 o'clock in the evening. And depending on our sailing schedule, some of the Christmas markets we are visiting in the evening, and some of the Christmas markets are also being visited during the day. Of course, at night it gives that special atmosphere. However, a bratwurst and a glühwein also tastes very well during the day.
And again, you're talking about food. So from here, I'm going to go straight into Portugal. And it says here, that's Janet from the States as well. And Janet is saying, are Portugal's River of Gold running yet? I think this was one of our first cruises, right? You started. You've just beat the Harald.
Yes, interesting. Because we've basically started, right? Our river cruises in Portugal. And I remember exactly because it was on the 17th of June, right? We have started in Portugal, our first cruise. And that's why I know it. I've been there. So the experience is great. We have finished by now already the first cruises in Portugal. So the feedback from the guests is throughout very, very positive. We had even been on a tasting, on a port wine tasting in a very small group. It was really, really interesting because it's not that crowded, of course. And that's why guests really enjoyed that experience. I must say it was really, really fantastic. I can only recommend, right, for you.
Right. I just want to say, when I look at it now, the sun is going down as well, so that's perfectly for cruising as well. So that's what you most probably experienced in Portugal as well.
Absolutely.
Right? And there are some questions about the bubble, which we're going to come to in a minute. So what is a bubble? But before we're going to go into that, I've got a question for Thomas. And the question is, you showed a simulator in the movie as well, so an airline-style simulator. Now, of course, we're not training pilots here. So the question that we're referring here to is, what exactly do they learn in a simulator?
We use a simulator here based in the area from Netherlands in Rotterdam for training communication between ship by ship, ship to the locks, ship to the traffic control points in the different areas. And also we train them in anti-lock with different weather conditions in the night, with fog, with rain. And we use the simulator for younger officers that we bring it step by step, that they get the license for all the different navigations areas. So this is what we use mainly, the simulator.
And that's a question by Judson, who has been asking the question. Now, it's interesting when you talk about the licenses here. So is a captain who is sailing here on the Rhine also able to sail on the Danube, on the Seine, you name it? Is this like universal, or is this a one-off thing that you get a license?
Not at the moment. So we have for the River Rhine a license, and we have a license for the Danube, and also we have a license for the French rivers. So it's not unique in the moment. So I think the European governments work on it, that you get similar than the ocean vessels, one license, and then you can navigate from the North Sea to the Black Sea.
Thank you very much, Thomas. And Harald, I want to come back to that question about the bubble. And it's Nancy is asking, first of all, have the recent cruises that we started, have they gone smooth? And from there, leading into the question of Nan, who is, are guests allowed? Are guests allowed to walk in and out of the bubble? So can you explain the concept of the bubble? I think what we are referring to here is there was a recent episode as well where we talked about the ship being a bubble as such. I think it was an ocean cruise as well where we talked about this. So how does that actually work on a river ship?
We're talking about the bubble. Why? Because we have all our crew and also guests first vaccinated and then also daily tested. So the advantage of doing a daily PCR test is, of course, we identify any positive or any threat, right, basically at the beginning. So this gives us always the possibility, right, to take the right measures. And I think this is a huge difference to many other operators. And I think this is why we call it a bubble. So on board the ship, we have only crew and guests daily tested, and that's why we operate in a bubble. And then, as Klaus had said also, when we go on shore excursions, we have small groups, we have our buses, right? Then we operate the shore excursions in small groups, and this is the way we operate, right? So this gives us quite very good confidence, right, that we have a safe way of operating our cruises. And to your question, right, how the first cruises went, as I said, we have operated now so far several cruises on different stretches on the Rhine River, but also in France and in Portugal. So far, everything worked out well. And I think our protocols, they have proven to be really a very, very safe protocol to operate now under these circumstances, right? Absolutely.
Harald, there's a few questions about Verify, which you've explained before. And this came from Michael from the United States. Is asking about Verify here. I've got here Carol as well asking about Verify. I think the general question about that system is, if I want to know more about Verify, do I call the ship and ask them about it, or do I call customer service? Who helps me on that sort of thing?
I think customer service is the right contact, right? If you would like, or if you have any open questions in concern of Verify, this is what you should do, right? You should contact customer relations in our sales offices.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. There are quite some questions about quarantine as well, so I'm going to come to this in a second. But before we're going to look at the quarantine, I want to come back one more time here about the question of training here. So the question comes back to the simulator again. And the question that we have in here, the simulator video mentions electric ships. Can you tell us more about that? Do you have electric ships? Is basically the question.
Yes, we are not 100% the electric ship, but we installed on the last generation of our Longships battery package. This allowed us to navigate the last stretch of the itinerary to enter Paris, for example, or to cover the peaks, or for emergency situation we have can cover this with the battery packs, but not we are not able to navigate the whole journey on the electrical capacity in the moment. But here we have done the first step, and I think Viking is here the leader in the industry to install some systems like this.
I think I cannot think about any other inland waterways cruise ships who have that, right? I assume what?
Not in this way we use it in the moment. There's a lot of things coming in the next years. For ferries, they're using batteries or electricity more, but for hotel ships or river vessels like our vessels, we are the first one.
It's a completely new concept as such. And you said these ships are where at the moment? Where are they sailing?
On the River Seine, on the Paris stretch, and we have two for the Rhine, but they are in the moment in Cologne Harbor. But I think this is the first generation, and then comes the second and the third one.
So they're getting better in terms of the capacity of what they can bring. So that's another reason to go to France, as I would say, right? And from there, I think we're going to dive into the quarantine question. So can you tell us a little bit about the word quarantine, because it comes up a lot of times in here as well?
When would you need to quarantine? I think that's the question, right? And this is when you would get tested positive, right? Then you will need to quarantine in most of the countries we're operating for 10 days. There are also countries where it's just 7 days, but most of the countries it's 10 days. But then, of course, we have a contingency plan, and I think this is important to mention here, because, of course, it can happen. Even though we have taken all these measures, it can happen that we would test positive, right, one of our guests. But then, of course, we would take absolutely care about you, and we have partnered also with hotels in the different cities on all the stretches, right? So we would for sure take care about if this would be the case that you would need to quarantine. On the river ship, we would bring you on the shoreside hotel, which is a 4-star plus or 5-star plus hotel, and then we would take full care about you till you can return back to the States.
Thank you for this. Now let's move away from the whole COVID thing for a minute here. Now, Klaus, that's an interesting one actually. Yeah? So this is Mike from Montclair asking a question there. And Mike is actually going back to the video where Irene was talking about the different types of excursions we have. And the question is here, I like the idea that with the excursion, the tour guide sometimes puts a slower speed in that. How does that actually work with other guests? So how does it work that one is faster, one is slower? How do you set that up?
We do have in certain areas active tours. So this would be for those guests who want to, go on a hike. Those guests who want to go on a bicycle ride. So those are. The focus there is on activity, on sports. At the same time, we also have tours which we call leisurely walking tours. So this is for guests who want to take a leisurely pace. And by calling those tours out, our guests can choose. Do they want to be active today and rather leisurely tomorrow? So that helps then the group to be not too diverse, so that guests know beforehand what they're signing up for.
Thank you. A question about dining here. So we stay with the food theme. The question here is about, can I dine with other spouses, colleagues together? So is there a restriction of if I can meet somebody for dinner, basically? Yeah.
Yes, I think this is a decision, right? You would take, of course, if you would like to dine with friends, you are welcome to do so. We have set up the restaurant for tables for 4, basically, and this is the way we have set up the restaurant. So yes, of course, you can dine also with your friends at the same table. And there's enough, as I said before, right? As we allow, of course, dining also in the lounge, but also in the restaurant, there's plenty of space, so we can keep also social distancing.
Interesting question from Linda here from Greensboro in the United States. And Klaus, I think that's a question for you. It says here, we're going on the Grand European cruise from Amsterdam to Budapest. And the question here is about the tours. Generally, he would say, will you be adding more tours so we can keep busy and spend more time on shore? So I think Linda here is worried that she's not going to be busy enough on that cruise. Perhaps
okay,
you can well,
up a bit. Linda, I don't think that you need to be worried about not being busy enough. We're offering included shore excursions on a daily basis. And at the same time, we're also having quite a lot of optional shore excursions. And by selecting the included and on top of that optional shore excursions, you can really fill the time that we're docking in the different cities and villages completely. So no worries about being bored. Exploring the world in comfort is the cornerstone of the concept of shore excursions.
Thank you, dear. And we're going to have to watch our time a little bit here. There's a ton of questions still actually pouring in. And if we haven't been able to answer any of your questions yet, we will afterwards also refer back by mail as well if you have your email address registered here. But just to pick a few more actually that is super interesting in here. One is about the hydrogen here. So Bill is asking here, you talked about batteries before, but have you ever thought about hydrogen as a method?
Yes, we are partner with some other companies and also with our shipyard where we built the last Longships. And there's a lot of things going on in the next year. And here we are in contact with the authorities. So we work on the technical solutions, but also on the other side with rules and regulation. But I think in the next 1, 2, or 3 years, there's coming something in the river business. with the solution, with this special, you can say fuel, or to reduce fuel, or a mix of these things. But I think this is a question of time.
Yeah. So there's projects around that,
yes,
around the different modes or methods that we can
absolutely.
Yeah. So interesting times ahead, I would say.
Absolutely.
So let's see what the future is going to bring there. Coming back here to a question that relates back to the video here, Klaus, I think that's for you here. Well, actually, I think it's between Klaus and Harald here. So the gentleman that was speaking on the video, so we are referring back to the video here, said something about April 1st. Yeah? Why April 1st? So I think what we're talking about the season as such, and the season start, when is that usually? So if we look a bit ahead into 2022, from this year to 2022, when can we expect the season 2022 actually starting?
Well, I mean, the season, depending on the itinerary, right? The season 2022 will start like usually all our previous seasons had started around end of March, beginning of April, again, depending on the itinerary. And we're clearly planning for a normal start of the season 2022. The restart in the season 2021 was delayed, so it was not March or April. But for 2022, March, April, depending on the itinerary, will be the season start. That's what we're clearly planning for today.
So this year we haven't been able to watch the tulips, right?
No, unfortunately not. Well, the tulips were there. Unfortunately, our guests could not enter the Netherlands.
But for next year, they're also going to be there.
They will be there, exactly. And fingers crossed that you will be able to watch the beautiful tulips in bloom.
For the tulips and windmills. And I think that at that point, we need to wrap up as well. There's a ton more questions actually pouring in, and we'll try to answer them by email as well. Now, looking ahead now, we've talked about hydrogen ships. We've talked about battery packs as well. We've gone into detail about COVID. How does it work actually? But not only COVID, but also what we have changed or improved on board to even have a better experience there. And then we're talking about the shore excursion setup as well. And as you mentioned as well, we are open, right? The world is open as well.
Yes.
Sodom is open as well. We can still see the buzz outside, even though it's evening already.
Yes.
And with these words, I would like to say thank you very much for joining us on that documentary as well. You can view the video within the next couple of hours as well back on Viking.TV. And if you scroll through the website as well, if you scroll through the channel, you can see different destinations as well. And also hear a little bit about the improvements and the changes we've been talking about, right? So the battery packs we have in one of the series as well. And there we talk about the different destinations. So check in on Viking.TV and there you will also see that documentary. Thank you for joining and welcome back to the world.